Joined now by our Canucks reporter, Jeff Paterson, one half of the Rink-Wide duo with Andrew Wadden. They were back at it last night with their post-game podcast and a fantastic YouTube pre-game show. Pre-game, post-game, every game. Well done, Jeff. Joined today on plenty of topics. How you doing, my friend?
Yeah, good. Yeah, the pre-game, our first foray down that path, it seemed to be pretty well received and it was some fun. And I think if that's our jumping on point, it'll only get better from there. But I think we're introducing something that isn't really in the market. So hopefully people will continue to find us and got some great responses. So thanks to everybody.
The news today had Sorry,
I was going to say we're working today. The Canucks are too, but you're telling us you didn't think that they were thinking that they were going to work today.
Well, certainly many on the staff didn't think that they were working today, and I don't know if this was a scheduled day off, if it was part and parcel with Truth and Reconciliation Day, but it seemed to me post-game last night that the feeling was there was not going to be any activity on ice for the Vancouver Canucks. And then sure enough, late last night, as Andrew and I were wrapping up Rink-Wide, out came a tweet from the Canucks PR department that sure enough, on the ice out at UBC, and I do wonder if this is a direct reflection of a perturbed head coach. Like, we know Bruce is happy-go-lucky. That was a different tone from the head coach, and I understand it. Like, Sunday, the split squad, whatever, first preseason game, not such a big deal. But the Canucks had JT Miller, Connor Garland, Tanner Pearson, their top line intact. They had Elias Pettersson, they had Kuzmenko, they had Quinn Hughes making his preseason debut. They had Thatcher Demko going well for 40 minutes last night. Like, they should have buried the Seattle Kraken with the lineup that the Kraken iced at Rogers Arena, and they didn't. And coach didn't like, obviously, the fact that they didn't play hard in the third period. There were defensive breakdowns. He talks about taking away the middle of the ice. You look at the tying goal, and John Hayden, not a noted goal scorer, but man, he had all day and all sorts of room right to walk to the net and fire one past Artur Silovs. Really, the game changed on a save that Silovs had to make. At 3-1, the Canucks are in pretty good position in the third period. And Artur Silovs, who's kind of been the apple of the eye of many here in the preseason, he whiffed on that one. Let's be honest. It was a bad goal at a bad time, and his stock probably drops just a little bit with the depth in front of him in that position. So tough night for him after a strong showing the other night. There was still enough individual performances to like from the Vancouver Canucks, but they're 3 games in and they don't have a win. And I know that there aren't points at stake, but it is trying to build to be ready on October the 12th. And I think Bruce saw some habits there last night that maybe that's why he's got them back on the ice here today.
Well, I sure hope it is habits and not results. It is at the end of the day preseason. Like, if some veterans were, coasting through different parts of preseason, treating it as a total tune-up where they're basically just out there getting a skate in, that's something that you sort of understand in the National Hockey. Vets aren't going to go 100% in preseason games. Oftentimes it's the younger and guys who aren't assured NHL jobs who are a little hungrier. PD was fantastic last night. Boy, if that's the Elias Pettersson that we get from game 1 through game 82, then all that superstardom and franchise player and all those labels that we talked about would apply. What did you make of number 40 last night?
Yeah, a lot of guys, our colleagues in the media that were up at Whistler, they seem to be getting, I thought, a little ahead of themselves with how dialed he was from the first day of training camp. And I don't know, I've been at this a while. I take training camp with a grain of salt, and it's all relative when you've got a mix of NHLers and AHLers and junior guys. And but Elias Pettersson certainly looked in the scrimmages at Whistler like he was into it. And you think at this time last year, he wasn't even in camp, didn't get a training camp. Didn't arrive until late in the second week of the preseason. So he's way ahead of the curve in that regard. He knows what he means to this hockey club. He recognizes what he's getting paid now. And it does look like he's come back focused and determined. And we saw it the other night with that cross-ice pass to Connor Garland at the back door to tie the game against Calgary, send it to overtime. And then the same thing last night, just zipped the pass onto the tape of Kuzmenko at the back door for his second of the night. But beyond the assist, it was the Deeks were there. The confidence level is up. Drawing penalties as well, sort of that complete game that you expect from Elias Pettersson. So, for me, Kuzmenko gets the glory because he scored 2 goals. He's the new shiny toy. But I thought, without a doubt, Elias Pettersson was the best player on the ice.
As you want him to be. You want him to be with, the role he has on this team. But, to the poll question, Kuzmenko is making the minimum effectively this year and only this year. And can you imagine the value that is potentially there for this season, at the very least, for the Vancouver Canucks, based on what we've seen? I don't think we're thinking he's going to be a Selke nominee by any stretch of the imagination. But, man, there are some serious offensive talents there. And I'm not talking apples of the previous eye like Nikolai Goldobin and others. Like, there's some high-end stuff there from Kuzmenko.
Well, that opening goal was an incredible sequence. Quinn Hughes down that left side, and it was funny that it didn't take long, 2.5 minutes in, and there's Quinn wheeling and dealing over on the left, even though he was playing the right side. That's his comfort zone. But just the way that he shimmied down the wall, looked off guys a couple of times, recognized that Kuzmenko was coming off the bench late as the trailer, and into open ice, and hit him with that pass. But then Kuzmenko pulls the puck to his body to sort of change the angle. And then we said, like, his shot pops differently than others. We've seen that through training camp. We saw it the other night. He didn't score against Calgary, but he had 3 shots on goal. Last night he made it count. And so, yeah, I mean, I do think that there's reason to be excited about this guy. He has seemingly fit in that plum position with Elias Pettersson. We wondered where they were going to slot him. And guys on the power play, if he's going to be the net front, if Besser is out for any length of time once the regular season starts, he seems to be finding his way there, and he's fascinating to watch because a lot of guys that play that down low, that net front, they will work from the net and then sort of kick out to the side and be a pass option. I was so drawn to Kuzmenko at how much time he spent behind the net last night. For him to get from side to side, he's kind of finding that open space in behind the net and being an option there, and it's just going to be interesting to see if that's an area that he continues to operate in. Because to me, it wasn't necessarily the conventional way that a net front guy goes about working his way sort of from point A to point B, but he was sort of sneaking behind the net out of the sight of the defenders and trying to find open space. And sure enough, there he did, popped up at the back post, and Elias Pettersson found him.
There might be a comparison there for Besser and Kuzmenko going forward because of salaries. You know, if Kuzmenko is a success, you know, can you fit everyone? The one thing I'll say, Kuzmenko gets his shot away, I think, a little quicker than Brock Besser. That would be my one criticism of Brock Besser's shot is it seems like he takes a little bit longer to get the shot away than a lot of snipers in the NHL, and I do like the quicker release there from Kuzmenko.
Yeah, I think that's something to monitor as we go forward. But you're right. The release, right from the first time I saw him on the ice of a Whistler, and he was drawing oohs and ahs from the people that were in attendance because you can tell. I mean, all these guys can shoot the puck, but it is relative. And I just think his shot does pop a little differently. And you can ask Joey Decord what he thought on that first goal last night.
So are you sold on him, Jeff? Whatever sold is, however you want to define sold, are you sold on Kuzmenko?
I'm going to vote yes at this stage. And again, I'm still not sure what my expectations are going to be. I wanted to see where he slotted in and what he looked like through camp in the preseason in terms of point projections. But he looks like he can play. Is he a perfect player? No. He probably would have been in the NHL by now if he was the perfect player. I do think that there are some areas of his game. I thought he was better defensively last night. Shift length were down a little bit as well, something that we talked about. So, yeah, a work in progress here, but I think last night was a nice effort. Again, context here matters against an undermanned, understaffed Seattle Kraken team, particularly up front. The Kraken did dress a number of guys that are likely to play for them defensively, but still, I don't think Joey Decord is likely to be their go-to guy in goal. So, Canucks should have won the hockey game. They were the better team on paper, but a game is played on the ice.
Shifting gears here, Rick Dhaliwal told us earlier in the show, and it has now been confirmed by a Canucks spokesperson, that Rachel Doerrie is no longer a part of the organization. She was just hired, 8 months ago to work as an analyst in the Canucks analytics department, and she's quite visible through Penticton, Whistler, and the preseason here. What do you make of this whole situation?
Yeah, making some phone calls and trying to sort of get to the bottom of it. There's stories that are out there, but I don't think the truth is out there yet. A couple of things. One is she, just following her on social media, made a big deal about the fact that she had packed up her life from Toronto and moved to Vancouver in September. She didn't even get through the month of September. So on a personal level, like, that's just got to knock you for a loop in that regard. But at the professional level, a couple of things. One is, you're right. She was there. She was in Penticton at Young Stars. She was at training camp in Whistler. Guys, she was out at training camp or at practice at UBC on Tuesday. And I know that because it dawned on me again. I saw her up at Whistler videoing the scrimmages, and I thought, that's curious that I don't remember Canucks management groups and staffers videotaping training camp scrimmages to go back and pour over tape and game film and that kind of stuff. And then they show up at UBC on Tuesday, and there she is again, working the camera. I don't know what she ultimately was looking at or looking for, but again, thought it was curious. That was Tuesday. On Wednesday, somebody else was doing the videoing, and right then the stories were starting to swirl, and I thought, okay, I think that probably tells me what I need to know, that the person that was in charge of video yesterday isn't on the job a day later. So this much I will say. I don't think the Vancouver Canuck organization can bask in the glory that it received for being progressive with the hirings of Emily Castonguay, Cami Granato, and obviously they're at a higher level in the front office, but Rachel Doerrie as well. This team got a ton of respect. Jim Rutherford talking about, he wanted to do things differently, and part of that was finding new voices and promoting people and giving them a chance. And so Rachel Doerrie was part of that. Organization, I thought universally was praised for, being a leader and bringing in women to have these opportunities to show what they can do and to prove their worth and to bring, their vision for the game. So I don't think you can accept all the bouquets 8 months ago and then hide behind a veil of secrecy and no comment. When, what was it, Patrick Johnson's story a week ago, that not only was Rachel Doerrie in the analytics department, she was now, I don't know if entitled, but was part of Bruce Boudreau's coaching staff, certainly a go-between between the coaching staff and the analytics department. And now she's out, and the team won't say a word. So the story is not going away. It's not over, not by a long shot.
If it was 4 years from now, you're right. I don't think they necessarily, because you're entitled to move on and get new voices in a room after a certain amount of time. If it's 4 years from now, I don't think that they need to explain it as well. But you're right. With such brevity here, it does necessitate.
Yeah, and maybe, hey, as Rick told us earlier, he gave it some time because there were some sensibilities here. Maybe the Canucks are also giving it a time. But I'm with you, Jeff. I do think their public deserves an explanation on that, particularly since Rachel was so public. If you followed her work on social media, when she was out of the NHL, she was a terrific analyst. We had her on the show draft day last year. So yes, she certainly had profile in the hockey world. We heard your interview with Brady Keeper, Jeff, for here on Truth and Reconciliation Day. Just wanted to give you an opportunity. What stuck out for you as you had the conversation with Brady that we played earlier in the show?
Yeah, he's a likable guy. I've had a chance to talk to him a couple of times, generally in scrum situations. I think briefly last year at training camp. I was there in Abbotsford that final day, a Saturday, remember it well, and have seen lots of injuries happen on the hockey rink. And, you hate to see the stretcher ever come out. And sure enough, just in a battle drill, in a practice on the final day of training camp, and I think it was in front of the net with JT Miller, and all of a sudden this howl, and you could tell that immediately there was something wrong. And to see the Canuck players on the ice react and not just go to the training staff, but banging on the glass and fortunately there were EMTs in the building and the stretcher and ambulance, and again, a terrible scene. Loses a season. He had a 2-year contract. And so last year, off season, here he is battling for his place. It doesn't look like he's going to be on the Vancouver Canucks to start the season, but he'll go to Abbotsford and hopefully has a chance to get some game action under him to get to a point where maybe he could be a call-up. The guy plays hard. I'll give him that. He's not the biggest guy in the world. But from the interview, what stuck out with me is, again, just how exponentially long the odds are to make to the National Hockey League for anybody, let alone from an Indigenous community in the middle of nowhere, northern Manitoba. And just the way he spoke with such reverence about his parents and the job that they did. And we know the distractions and the roads, unfortunately, that a lot of Indigenous youth get dragged down. And for Brady to be able to stay on the track, and he just gave so much credit to his parents. His dad's a school teacher. His mom works in a nursing station, as he said. And just for him to make it, to defy the odds the way that he has here. And listening to him talk about some of the hardships where he said, I know I was better than players when I got cut from other teams. He didn't want to go down the racism road and play that card necessarily, but I thought without saying an awful lot, he said enough in that regard. And he just beamed last week at the end of his media availability. He mentioned his kids, and somebody said, "How old are your kids?" And he said 4 and 7. And then without missing a beat, he said, "And we've got another one on the way." And big smile on his face. So his wife and his youngest child are out here right now visiting him. The older one, I think the 7-year-old, is in school back home. So I think mom is going to go back. I don't know what the living situation will be, over the course of the season. She's pregnant, due in March, I believe it is. And so Brady may be out here on his own with the family back home. Whatever the case, you can just tell how much family, his own family, his parents, the community at large, means to him. And so, just had a really great chat, and he, tried to be an open book. And, before we started the interview, I said, I want to tell your story. I know that you've told your story in other places, but for a Vancouver audience, we didn't really get this chance last year. And he said, "Yeah, sure, let's go." And so, gave me 10 good minutes out at UBC the other day.
Yeah, no, it was terrific, Jeff. Thanks for getting that for us. Thank you for this. Look forward to Rink-Wide on the weekend here, Saturday post-game, and, of course, your pregame as well. Appreciate this. We'll talk to you on Monday.
All right, guys, have a great weekend.